So why isn't it doing anything?
Well, it takes time for it to get there.
Okay.
Now it's doing it. No, I can start talking. You want more coffee?
Good day and welcome to the Constitutionalist Hour. And I hope everyone is safe and want to give a shout out to all you folks in Florida and Georgia. Hopefully that you're safe and our thoughts and prayers are going to you. Coming to you live from just outside of Charleston, South Carolina. And we've had some winds that have gusted up to 75 miles an hour. But we are still here and we're still kicking, so that's a good thing. And again, if you have had the opportunity to come in and be a part of the Constitutionalists. This is our first show. So if there's a burp now and then, don't blame me. Blame that on the technician. And I'll talk to him later about that. But currently, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a few things. And the first thing that I want to do is I just want to update people on to exactly what's been going on here with uh, Hurricane Matthew. And have some notes from 9 a.m. this morning on to the current conditions. Currently, it's just off the coast of Charleston, and they haven't quite figured out if it's going to land in Charleston, Myrtle Beach, or if it's going to slide on up just a little bit further on up the road and hit North Carolina. So, uh, we will know, I suppose, a little bit later. We have seen wind gusts up to 75 miles an hour. At 9 a.m. this morning, we were hitting around 31. There is a heavy rain, and storm surge will combine to trigger major flooding in the Charleston area. We are seeing that. We are seeing some road closures due to flooding. And my street out there, I just noticed, along with my front yard being underneath water, now I notice that the road's underneath water. So, unless I plan on swimming to safety, I guess I'm stuck here for at least a few moments. So, we will have a chance to talk. And just in case nobody has known, the high speed that was registered in Florida was at 107 miles per hour, and that was in Cape Canaveral. Then Daytona Beach was coming in at 91. Jacksonville was at 87 miles per hour. And earlier today, Hilton Head was at 83 miles per hour. And then it went down to 63. And we're looking at Beaufort, South Carolina at 64 miles per hour. So we've had some fluctuation even here in South Carolina between the gust of 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. And currently we're still in a hurricane warning. Tropical storm warnings are further inland, further to the west than we are, but there's still a threat for tornadoes, and they're talking about those tornado warnings are in effect until 4 p.m. today. Governor Nikki came on and informed folks that are into the Charleston area don't plan on coming home today and don't plan on it tomorrow. So if you own a business into the Charleston area and we're expecting your employees to show up on Sunday or even Monday, don't plan on it, because Governor Nikki said that chances are they're not going to be allowed to come home, even though that they have opened up I-26 from Columbia coming on down that, and then we have the 95 corridor as well, and both of them they're going to be stopping people. And the eye of the hurricane looked like it was just off the coast here at 8 o'clock this morning with 962 megabarrs. Uh, so it's still very low, uh, which means that we still have a good chance of strong winds. And if I look at the huge pine trees outside, 1 minute they're standing nice and strong, and then the next minute they're bending over trying to sway to the music, and there's no music to sway to, so we're having some problems there. 9 o'clock this morning, we were seeing 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, and we're going to see that until around 3 p.m. Then at 4, as I said, the tornado watches and warnings should cease. And at 9 o'clock tonight, we're going to be seeing here in Charleston 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, while in Myrtle Beach they should still be seeing 75 plus mile per hour winds, according to the Weather Channel. And then at 3 a.m., we're going to be looking at 40 or 50 mile per hour winds. So we really had a chance to hunker down to make sure that you are safe, and that is what we do hope will continue. Now, on to more important matters, which is into the political realm. One of the things that I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about our infamous candidate for the GOP, better known as Donald J. Trump. And he has managed to get everybody riled up by something that he said 10 years ago. Now we say, well, that has no bearing on today. The problem is that he's had a history of the same events going on time after time after time. The sad thing is that we actually believe that it is polite, okay, uh, whatever you want to call it, to use some of the language that was used that was actually broadcast. And I am sorry, but that is something that I don't want to hear. And I definitely know that we don't want our children to hear or our grandchildren to hear. So, uh, being on to the social media as I am, you've probably seen the Constitutionalist either onto Twitter or onto Facebook, and you're well aware that I am definitely a staunch conservative, believe in the Constitution, uh, reading through some of the comments, and it just amazes me that we have people making comments like, who cares what he does? We just want a strong America. Well, I'm sorry, but the actions, the words, and the deeds of a person's past is going to give us more information into what he's going to do into the future. And some of those things definitely are not positive. Now, uh, I had one person said that he's a strong leader. What is strong about using the weakness of others to gain superiority? There's nothing strong about that. That is just a weak person preying on weaker people. So that is kind of my intro into my answer to those who defend Donald's latest atrocities. And my comment to you is this: a person who would scatter their own morality and integrity to defend such acts as what Donald's done in the past, what Donald has done in the near past, it's just reprehensible. There's no other way to say it than it's just reprehensible. So what I wanted to do is just kind of read the
And it might go out again, so the lights keep flickering.
okay. So the power went out just as I was going to discuss to everyone my response to those who defend Donald's latest comments, his latest actions, and his poor excuse for an apology. So let me go ahead and read this. And again, if you have any questions, comments, uh, suggestions, feel free to leave those into the comment section to the right of uh, the screen. I would love to hear from you, as well as anything else that you want to say, as long as it's in good taste. Okay. So here's my response to Donald Trump. And no, it's not just lighting a cigarette. That's not the only response, but that's one of them. Okay. So deflection is a very evil sickness and cannot be healed by one simple task. Your deception of your own heart is through the deflection of everything evil placed upon the actions of others than the reality of those who have perpetrated the heinous act. Donald is not only evil, but calculating, lying, deceitful, and has done far worse than the acts of others. But your own immoral acts in life allow you to distinguish the undenying mitigation of Donald's own heathen lifestyle. A man or woman who objectifies another is shallow, weak in morality, and finds pleasure in the distress of another person, usually by sexual pleasure, control, or by objectifying them to a paltry subjectivization. Donald, since his first marriage to Ivana, lost the ability to honor, love, and sanctify his love for her when he tossed her to the floor, pulled wads of hair out of her head, used all vulgarity as a show of power, and then proceeded to force himself upon her. Today, we consider that spousal rape, a very real and very dangerous mental failing caused by the inability to cope and the need to take power from the weak in return for an assumption of power given. Donald again, with his own second wife Marla, had to redeem his failings in business and monetarily by forcing her to not only expose herself but to get paid to be nothing more than a dead heap of human flesh exposed for Playboy. Now Donald is of weak character to the point of not only being weak and frail but narcissistic and power hungry. While he believed in his own mind to be the center of attention in socially unacceptable sex movies brought him more infamous spotlight. Only after Ivanka was born did the true sickness of Donald appear by his discussions concerning her new body, the way he sloppily Googled her in sexual desire, did people see the true mental element of Donald. To this day, discuss, uh, recorded in infamy is his words, "If she was not my daughter, I would date her." Not only is disgustingly perverted, but completely unacceptable in society as any norm, and is a gross sin in the eyes of anyone's God. We have heard of Donald's alleged affairs with not only single women of fame, but those of married fame. We even heard him stating that he could have done Princess Diana, a perfectly beautiful and respected English lady. A disease is better known as satyriasis, is a disease where one needs sex to feel powerful or desired in status. Donald Trump is nothing more than a sociopath of terrific proportions. Donald manifests the worst in personality disorders for his own pleasure, with little regard for the consequences. This is probably attributed to his life as a child and his father buying favors to protect Donald. Donald seems to also have the symptoms of pedophilia, where he fantasizes and acts upon those fantasies by the history of three known sexual abuse cases of minor girls. Today, we discuss Donald's complete uncouth nature as we listen to a demented man describing his sexual prowess in a most unacceptable form that not only shows a lack of decency but the lack of respect for the female populace. To this end, one cannot muster in their moral mind why anyone, specifically a person running for the highest office in the United States, would have a background strife in innuendos, actual encounters, court cases, video of them having complete disregard for half of the American population. These acts are not only heinous, but illegal, immoral, and reprehensible. A person who would scatter their own morality and integrity to defend such act is as reprehensible. Those who chose to use the tit for tat approach and try to deflect to what another candidate may or may not have done or their spouse may have done does not comprehend the psyche of Donald, his lifestyle, and what he has gotten away with throughout his insufferable life. I am sorry to divulge that if one will so unabashedly defend these actions, then they are as unstable in morality and acceptability as Donald. There's nothing non PC or PC about misogyny, rape, sexual assault, sexual abuse, and the objectivity of people. That's my thought on to Donald Trump and his comments that was produced yesterday. His comments that he's made, uh, going back to when he was talking about Rosie O'Donnell, to when he was talking about Megyn Kelly, to where he was talking about lawyers in legal proceedings, to the women that he had working for him when he told them that their best position would be on their knees, to the beauty pageants that he had and all the comments that he made to those women. We even hear now that there has come out a group of women who used to work for him that are saying that this is commonplace for him to act like this, to say words like this, to feel that he has the right to do what he wants when he wants to do it. We all know that's not correct. We all can't just run around and do what we want to. But this man feels that because he has a little bit of power, he has the right to do that. So enough about Donald Trump and his disgusting comments and his disgusting lifestyle. Let's look at something else. And again, if you are uh, even remotely keen to what what I do onto the social media, you know that we've been having a poll to ask who will you vote for in 2016, Hillary Clinton, Evan McMullin, Donald Trump, or other. And as of today, with 631 votes in, which is much better than some of the national uh, polls that are tossed around that different people enjoy and love to recite. Uh, Hillary Clinton has 10% of the vote. Other has 17%, which is equal to Donald Trump's 17%. And Evan McMullin has 56%. And you're saying, yeah, but how can that be? He's not even known. Well, he's known more and more every day. And as people get to know him and get to find out that he was the investigator and not the investigated, he's already 3 steps ahead of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Because let's face it, both of them have been investigated over and over and over on different uh, choices that they made. Uh, from racketeering by Donald to emails by Hillary to hiring H-1B immigrants to replace American workers by Donald to the death of people in Benghazi. We can see a whole history of reasons that both Donald and Hillary have been investigated. And that's one of the polls that is out. And that one there is on Twitter. Then we also have another one which has 1% for Darrell Castle, 3% for Hillary, 2% for Gary Johnson, 1% for Jill Stein, 2% for Donald Trump, 2% for other, and then we have Evan McMullin at 90%. So we're seeing a trend that's happening here. Now, we can say that the 56% is high. Then we can say the 90% is high, and that it's just Evan McMullin supporters that are voting. But that would be too coincidental considering that they're in two different areas that they have nothing in common with one another. They're both uh, advertised in the same method, and we see such a huge number for Evan. Then we have one other poll that I'm pulling up here. It'll be just a moment and it'll be up. Uh, so there's 3 different polls that we have out. Now this poll here is do you support the RNC removing Donald Trump and replacing him with Evan McMullin? Now, this poll was done last night, And as of today, it has 479 votes. And of that, 97% says yes, 5% says no. Now, again, this is being uh, advertised, I guess you would call it, onto Facebook and Twitter. And they're done so that whether you're a follower of mine or not, they're shared out there to the public for everyone to know. Other people share them. Again, Donald Trump's people have the same opportunity to go and vote. The difference is that I limit every person to being able to vote one time. When that happens, when you actually take these internet polls and you limit a person to voting one time, we find that Donald Trump is below Hillary Clinton. What is that telling you? What does it tell you about all these internet polls where he's been number one? Whether it be from Fox News that does an internet poll, to the Washington Post, to the New York Times, to whoever is doing them. If they do an internet poll and they're not limiting you to just one vote, your numbers are going to be high, and they're going to be really high because you have the same person that's going to be voting over and over and over again. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is principles. We all need principles. We all need, not that we all need, we all have principles. We all have limits on what we will do, what we won't do, what we have for expectations. And Evan McMullen, this past week, had challenged America to a set of principles for a new American leadership. And his comment was is that the time has come for a new generation of American leadership and civic engagement. Our nation was founded by courageous, principled Americans who took on the seemingly impossible fight for the cause of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To put our country back on track, we must live up to their example. We begin by identifying and discussing the core ideals and principles that give us strength and prosperity. Now, what other candidate have you heard us talk about principles? Asking for input, asking for national discussion about something. Nobody. Nobody. Let's face it. None of the current candidates are. None of the candidates in 2012 were. Our current president doesn't. So, if nobody's discussing this, then how are we, the people, going to know where these people stand? So, just to give you a little bit of enlightenment onto some of these, okay? Our basic rights are God given. That's number one. Every American is created equal and has the same right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The fundamental purpose of government is to secure, not define, these rights for every member of our diverse society. What does that mean to you? To me, it means something very simple. I have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in a way that I find best for me. That the government cannot come in and tell me who or what I can believe in, how I can decide or describe my happiness. And unless I go against the society as a whole, you can't stop me from having liberty to go from point A to point B. What do you think? Do you think that uh, those basic rights are God given, or that they're something that the government has the right to give to you or take away? Be very interesting to find that one out. So if you have any comments on that, again, go ahead and put them on there. The next item that I wanted to talk about is we honor our Constitution. We must honor the Constitution and the rights it enshrines as written, including the freedoms of religion and speech. Any changes to the Constitution must be made through the amendment process it provides, not by the Supreme Court, which is the judicial branch, and not by the President, which is the executive branch. In other words, we elect a president every 4 years. But we elect Congress people, the House of Representatives, every 2 years. The reason is if they're not doing the job that we sent them to do, we can remove them. Then we also have senators. Now we give them longer, but the reason for that is so we have some consistency. But those two bodies need to come to an agreement before any law can be given to the president. The president then either signs or vetoes it. And then we still have a process that if the House of Representatives and the Senate can override his veto or her veto, then it becomes law anyway. We have a Supreme Court that no longer reads the Constitution as it was written. They look at it and say, well, today, because today is Saturday, then everything to do with Saturdays is legal, but if it's on a Sunday, it's not legal. Where do they come up with that? You can't decide because society changes that the Constitution changes. The Constitution is the Constitution. And you have certain inalienable rights by that Constitution. And that's what they're supposed to decide on. They don't have the right to go and make up their own laws. And unless there is a law written afterwards, any decision made by the Supreme Court is just a decision on one case. It does not become law of the country. Government power must be separated and balanced. The Constitution grants separate powers to the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. We must return lawmaking power to Congress, ending executive and judicial overreach. Federal activities must be limited to those granted by the Constitution, and all other powers must remain with the states and the people. It's about time that the federal government quit sticking their hand into the honeypot. Every time you turn around, the federal government wants to take another right away from the state for the good of the country. No, it's not for the good of the country. It's for the good of the power-hungry elites from Washington and New York. Those are the people who gain from that. Not you and I, not somebody from Montana, North Dakota, not somebody from Utah, South Carolina, Maine, not somebody in Hawaii or Alaska. We're individuals. And I can tell you that somebody who lives in Hawaii has a much different need than somebody who lives in northern Maine. So why are we making federal laws that's going to encompass everybody? That doesn't make sense. Each state has to have the right to make their laws. And by the way, the original tax burden was for the military. That was it. Period. For the military. And if somehow they uh, received a couple extra bucks, then it went to the Congress and the president. It was not a situation where we overtaxed the citizens and made them feel like they're being punished for working. Excuse me as I take a drink of coffee. The next one means a lot to me. Our leaders must be honest and wise. Now think about it. Do you want a liar as your president? Do you want somebody who may have or may have not have broken a law? The question is into the eyes of the investigative team that's investigating them, to the judge that is uh, judging over the proceedings. But when we have two people, the two major parties that are running, that have such criminal, questionable backgrounds, what is wrong in America that we would accept that? I saw a meme the other day, and it was talking about that out of 319 million Americans, we chose the worst two as the two major party candidates. And if you think about it, I mean, we've got Hillary Clinton, we have email scandals, we have the Benghazi scandal, we have billions of dollars missing from point A to point B. Then we look at Donald Trump and Uh, he was fined millions of dollars in the past for RICO Act. Now he's being investigated for his racketeering, his tax evasion, his money laundering uh, at the GOP convention, and the GOP is actually being investigated for that. Then we have Donald Trump being investigated for the University of Trump that was just a fiasco to get $41 million out of the average American. To we have a rape case going on with him, and we have so many other things going on with him. And then we have the Clinton Foundation, the charities that haven't given away any money. And of course, we could talk about Donald Trump's as well. You will find a lot too that as I don't talk so much about Hillary Clinton because it's a well-known fact of what the Clintons have done over year, over year, over year. We don't need to discuss that. The thing is that we have people who say that Trump is perfect, that Trump is a wonderful business person, that Trump has never done anything wrong, but every day there's something new happening. So it, we're looking at voting for two evils if we go that way. No, no, there's a better choice. It's a third party choice. And whether you're an Evan McMullen fan or a Jill Stein fan or a Castle fan or a Johnson fan, there's four third party choices to make. What we need to do is we need to pick one of those and we need to stand behind them and we need to make sure that we don't have a Hillary Clinton or a Donald Trump that becomes president. And whether that means that it goes to the House of Representatives for the vote or whether it just means that one of those four actually does get more votes than anybody else. So again, we need to have honest and wise leaders that put the public interest ahead of their own. That means that it's not another notch on a belt. It's not a way to get to know more people, to have more control over your finances when you get out of office. These people need to act with integrity, transparency, and have good judgment. You can't have good judgment if you have a history of making bad judgments. When when you look at Benghazi and Russia and things like that, and then we have hiring uh, foreign immigrants to replace American workers, and we've been fined for racketeering in the RICO Act, and we started a fake university, and we have a fake charity, and things like that. None of that is integrity. None of it is transparent, and none of them have. Neither of those two have the judgment needed to secure America, to be the strongest power in the world, and to create the alliances that we'll need to make sure that our interests are taken care of first. We share responsibility for service and civic duty. Every American has a responsibility to serve our communities and our nation. It is our civic duty to be informed and engaged on important issues and to seek out leaders who will uphold our rights and serve the people. Something that so many people have just become lazy in or whatever is they would rather have uh, TV comedian or somebody who talks a good game. I It amazes me. These people have no clue when it comes to the history of these people. They don't understand that a person's past is going to show what their future is like. The old saying, you can't teach an old dog a new trick. Well, we have two old dogs running. We have a 68-year-old and we have a 70-year-old. Let's face it, their, their style of living is not going to change because they become president. It's just going to become highlighted more. We need leaders that are fiscally responsible. Our country cannot be secure and prosperous with controlled debt and deficits. Our leaders must have the courage to reform entitlement programs and pay down debt rather than accumulating more. What a concept. Every month, you and I have to pay bills. Every month, we have to make sure that what we're doing is paying our bills that are due. We don't have the right to go out and say, well, someday I'm going to pay you back and get a bunch of items that we don't want. Or not that we don't want, that we can't afford. But the federal government, for some reason, feels like they can go and get a piece of paper that absolutely means nothing and create millions of dollars and go out and spend billions to end up with trillions in deficit because we want to give away everything. But the end result is that we can't keep doing that. You know as well as me that if you make $100 a month and your bills are $300 a month, a couple months you can survive, and then after that, you're dead in the water. That's what's happening with the federal government. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. It takes somebody with a little bit of common sense to understand that we can't have a debt of 20 trillion and continue to keep spending like we are. Government must promote a free market. Big corporations should not be able to buy government favors. There should be a level playing field for all companies, large and small. Smart, narrowly focused regulation must protect health and safety without stifling innovation. Well, that makes sense. Okay, we want to make sure that when you're working, that we're not going back to the days when we would have children working for pennies or people working 70, 80 hours a week and getting paid for 25. We don't want people to be treated like they are in China and more or less they're housed in the same place that they work from the time that they're old enough to start working until they pass away. So we do need regulation for those things. But we don't need to regulate everything. Um, I used to live in Florida and it just amazed me. Okay, you cut down a tree, you had to replace it with twice the amount of diameter of new trees. Well, if you're cutting down a tree, chances are you didn't need a tree around. If you need to replace it with double the amount of diameter of that one tree, what what are you accomplishing? You're making it more difficult. You're making it so that an individual who owns a piece of property can't turn around and cut down their own tree and fix their property up. They've got to go and hire people to come in and plan this out, and then you got to go hire landscape developers to come in and do it, and you've got to get permits to do all this. It just gets to the point of being burdensome. Well, if you're doing that to an individual, what do you think all of the regulation is doing to small business? You want to sneeze? Well, we have to give you a permit for that. You want to have a back storage room? Well, we got to give you a permit for that. But if you're going to have a trash can outside, we got to make sure it's the right size for the right amount of the square footage that you have. If you're going to have a if you're a gas station, you're going to have gas tanks, and they have to be a certain level down. They have to be a certain thickness. They got to be this. They got to be that. They got to. It gets to the point where a small business person looks at it and says, I've got money, I can put it in the bank and make as much money in interest as I'm ever going to make on a business. Why am I going to go and risk that money if the federal government is fighting me as much as the number of failures of small businesses? So that doesn't make any sense. We've got to stop that. We must help people in poverty to overcome it. Government must provide a basic safety net for Americans unable to support themselves. Its programs should help people to overcome poverty rather than simply survive it. I mean, I don't know. To me, living on minimum wage uh, is hard enough. But if you're living less than that, in other words, you're getting food stamps and a certain amount per child or per person in the house, and then a certain amount of your electricity is paid for, and then a certain amount of that's paid for, and then the rest you've got to come up with somehow. Either you don't live in a place that you want to, or you're dead broke so you can't provide for your family, or if you want to go to school you can't because you don't have the ability to do it. Now, does that make any sense to anyone? It doesn't to me. Why don't we give people the opportunity to take pride in their life, to take pride in a job, to take pride in an education, to take pride in being able to take care of their family? said, no more free handouts. Let's do some type of a handout where, and it's not a handout, some type of entitlement reform where these folks actually have the ability to move forward, that they can see that rainbow at the end, or they can see the light coming through the darkness. Right now, they see nothing. No matter what they try to do, they can get nowhere because they don't have the money to do things. Uh, we must protect life from birth to natural death. Our respect for life is a true measure of our humanity. We must protect the lives of the most vulnerable from the unborn to the elderly. And we can have discussions and we can have agreements or disagreements on to abortion, but let's face it, if we come to a part in our lives where we we decide that our actions don't really require that we are responsible for them, that we can go and take a pill, or we can go see a doctor for 5 minutes, or we can go to a clinic and an hour later we're walking out and dust our hands off and we're good to go. That's not teaching any responsibility to the young. That's not being responsible for yourself. That means that it's all about me and nothing about anybody else. But if you created a human, a person, they need to be protected. They need to know that they're going to be cared for. And that's what we're talking about when we say we must protect life from birth to natural death. National defense is a primary federal government responsibility. It was the first one. I'm from northern Maine, and I remember the Aroostook War was the most expensive war ever, percentage-wise, the most expensive war that the United States has ever been into. Not one shot was fired. But because the Aroostook War was so many years ago, decades ago, hundreds of years ago, well, not hundreds, it was in the early 1800s. So, yeah, about 200 years ago. It was the most expensive war. Not one shot was fired. Today, we have a military that is tearing apart old planes, old tanks, taking parts from ships, cutting it off, putting it onto new ones. That's not the way to run a military. We have cut down on to the number of military personnel because we want to cut costs. So what we do is we cut it from the military. If we cut it from the military, we're cutting our own security. It's kind of like cutting your nose off to spite your face. You still got your face, but now you got this big hole in it. That's the same thing. We still have our country, but we have a big hole because we're not taking care of our security blanket. And our security blanket is our military. So our national security requires unmatched military and economic strength and a commitment to the cause of liberty. All Americans should have access to affordable, quality health care. The best way to improve Americans' health care is to encourage competition and innovation. A healthcare system must be responsive to patients, not simply insurers and bureaucrats. When was the last time that you actually had somebody describe to you what your insurance was and what it meant? And did you understand it? In this new system that we have, why am I paying for an abortion? Why am I paying for uh, mammograms? Then again, why are women paying for prostate exams? It doesn't make any sense to me. This stuff needs to be responsive. It needs to be innovative. We need to be able to have systems where, because our phone, you take your smartphone today, it'll tell you what your blood pressure is, what your uh, heart rate is, how many feet you've walked in a day. If it can do that, why can't all of a sudden your doctor have a program where every week there's a report taken and given to them on how you're doing? There's got to be a way to do it. There's got to be a way to protect that information. That's what's responsive to patients. Get rid of the insurer saying this is what you can do and this is what you can't do and this is how much you got to pay to do this and you don't have to pay for that. Who decides? Okay? You know, when you get a dental plan, they'll give you $1,000 a year. Well, if you need new teeth because you've been taking medication, $1,000 is not even going to, break the ice. So again, it's wrong. Our Second Amendment rights must be protected. We have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms, which the government must ensure. Now, it was not to do sports, sport shooting, where people go out and hunt as a sport. It was not done to kill. This amendment was not written so that you could go and kill uh, deer and moose and cows or whatever so that you have enough meat for the winter. It was to protect your family. It was to protect your community. It was to protect your country. And it needs to stay that way. We need to quit talking about guns kill people. Now, unless you've seen a gun get up, that was sitting on a table, get up and say, you know what, I'm going to go out and shoot somebody, and goes out and shoots somebody, it's not the gun. It's the person. We have some instances where some people should not have guns. Okay, so let's figure those out. Let's have a national discussion on that. And finally, healthy immigration is important to our future. We must secure our borders, enforce our laws, and facilitate the legal immigration of those who will contribute to American prosperity, security, and culture. Real simple is that we need to have some walls built. We need to use current technology in some other areas. We may need more border patrols, border agents. And then we need to stand behind the laws that we have, which means that we can't have sanctuary cities. You're a sanctuary city, then you go and arrest the people that are providing sanctuary to illegal immigrants. Then from there, we need to come up. But this is after the walls are built and we've taken care of the current laws we have in the books. Then we need to look at the immigrants that are still here. We need to come up with a plan where they can stay if they're creating prosperity. They have something to offer because they own a business. They have something to offer because they are well-known doctors, scientists, philosophers, whatever it is. And for people who are going to come to this country, again, same thing. If you're going to come to this country, immigrate to this country, you've got to have something to offer. You can't come here and ask to take. So those are the principles that Evan McMullin was discussing. So if you have a chance, go ahead and respond to that. Respond to Evan McMullin at www.evanmcmullin.com. If you want to read more about him, to read more in depth, you even have a chance to go ahead and make comments onto his website concerning any of those principles. Now, there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and Mindy Finn. Who is Mindy Finn? Where'd she come from? Why is her name sounding familiar all of a sudden where it didn't a couple days ago? Okay. Well, Mindy Finn happens to be the person that Evan has chosen to be his running mate, his VP candidate. Okay? She was born and raised outside of Houston, Texas, where she graduated from Kingwood High School. She received her bachelor's degree in journalism from Boston U and a master's in political management at George Washington University. Now, Mindy has served recently as a founder and president of the Empowered Women, a bipartisan organization that gives voice to bold, new generation of American women in civic life. Now, throughout her career, she has found strength in the belief that America is a nation where all people can make a difference in their own lives and in the lives of others. What a concept. You can make a difference in your own life. And maybe you can make a difference in your neighbor's life, a co-worker's life, or somebody who just comes into your business and needs something. We see socialists and we see communists and we see All these different people saying, well, life would be better in this area or in that area. Yeah, but you're giving up something. And what you're giving up is your freedom. Keep in mind, every law that's made means that some freedom is taken. So keep that in mind. So back to Mindy. Beginning as a communications and legislative aide on Capitol Hill, Mindy quickly built a career advocating for conservative principles and candidates across the country. She has worked with both President George W. Bush and Mitt Romney to help advance the ideals of liberty and equality that she always believed set the United States apart from any other country. Now, those are some really neat ideals. Liberty and equality, that we are all equal. We all have the God granted gift of liberty. And we have 4 or 5 minutes left before we're done our first broadcast of The Constitutionalist. Mindy also had as a personal understanding of the many challenges that face small businesses across America. Having founded and run her own company, she knows how stifling bureaucratic regulations can be on innovation and prosperity. Nowhere is there more true than in our technology sector, where Mindy's work with Twitter, Google, and other tech media companies has helped her earn a reputation as one of the Washington's 100 tech titans. She believes that America has been the birthplace of some of the world's most innovative brands and technology precisely because of its bold character and dedication to free enterprise. And the interesting thing is, Mindy previously helped to build Twitter's presence in D.C., leading strategic partnerships for politics and advocacy in the 2012 election cycle, earning recognition as one of the ad age's 40 under 40, leading innovation in media and politicos, 50 politicos to watch. As the 2016 election unfolded, however, Mindy found herself increasingly disappointed with the two major parties' candidates. She believes our country is at a crossroads where the people are more distrustful and dissatisfied with the politics than ever before. People no longer feel their voices are being heard. Having encouraged others to run her whole life, she knew it was time to walk the walk herself. So she is proud to stand up and to run with Evan, to give the American people a vote in which they can take pride in. Uh, Mindy is married to her husband David, has 2 sons, Max and Nathan. And I believe I did read where she is also a Jewish mom. So uh, we we have a really bang up team there between Evan and Mindy. We have a young uh, freedom fighter, Evan, for 11 years, worked in the CIA and co-op or ops operations over in the Middle East and other parts of the world, being a Latter-day Saint Mormon. Then we have Mindy from the tech industry, very savvy into the business world, under 40, Jewish mom, 2 children, husband. We're looking at a future of leaders that understand and get you. If you're a millennial, if you're somebody that's 50 and younger, they understand you. They get where you're coming from. When you talk about a cell phone, you wish it could do this. They understand. It's not just talk. They understand. When you say, I just wish that I could get this, they understand. When they say, the burden onto my college education is still killing me, and I'm 40 years old, and I went to school, and I was out of school at 22, they understand. Because that's where they're at. So, as I close out today, I didn't see any comments from anybody. Don't know how many people listened, watched, but we will be doing this every Sunday and Wednesday. An opportunity for you to sit back, listen to either your points of view being agreed upon or just the opposite of your point of view. It don't matter, because you have an opportunity to voice your opinion into the chat line. You have your opportunity to give suggestions. to say, hey, I really like that comment, or not so good about it. But I do appreciate the opportunity to come to you live. I hope that you had a good time today listening. And if there's anything that you would like to hear or talk about or have me talk about, please go ahead and let me know. And we will go ahead and talk about that in the coming uh, Constitutionalist Minute, which is actually an hour long. And I do want to say thank you one more time. And our tech guy, he didn't have to be used other than he had to figure out that the power went out. That was simple. All the lights and everything else went out. Not too hard to figure that one out. Just had to get back up and running. So, till later, this is the Constitutionalist. Thank you for being part of our first show, and may you have a wonderful weekend. God bless you, and God bless America. Take care.